Hello and welcome to Chapter 6, Ancient China. Here you will find the slides and audio for sections 1, 2, and 3. You don't have to do all of them at once and you can space them out. However, if you would like to do them all at once, they're all right here. If you do want to space them out, you could go ahead and when I complete section 1, you could just go ahead and stop and resume section 2 whenever works best for you. So our enduring understanding for this chapter is to explore that during the Qin and Han dynasties, many aspects of Chinese society were influenced by the philosophies of legalism, Taoism, and Confucianism, which sought order and balance in society. And those are kind of the three major concepts that I want you to take away. That despite all the chaos of wars and transitioning emperors and all of the things that plague empires that we studied to date, that these three philosophies kind of emerged as a means to remedy all those issues. All right, so in particular to section 1, we're going to examine what led to the development of the philosophies of Confucianism, Taoism, and legalism, and what were their long-term impacts. So you've got these three main key terms here. They should be no surprise. Okay, so we'll start first with Confucianism. I want to make it very clear that this is a philosophy and not a religion, and it's a political philosophy and ethos about how to bring harmony into a society. Confucius essentially believed that people are good and that they are capable of behaving in an ethical manner, if just given the right tools and the right effort to reach harmony. How does one reach harmony? By actively following the Tao, which is also known as the Way, and making sure that people follow that trajectory. Also by respecting the five constant relationships. And the five constant relationships are parent and child, husband and wife, older sibling and younger sibling, older friend, younger friend, and ruler and subject. And you'll note that the first person mentioned in all of these relationships is the dominant one. So there is an element of subservience in these five constant relationships in which the second person mentioned, kind of respects the knowledge and wisdom of the former. Confucianism also believes that there is a natural order of the universe in the way that things are supposed to be, but humans have to actively work to get there. And he believes in a society based on merit, and that the government should, promote people and give people jobs based on their merit, not, based on their financial connections or how willing they are to, buy into a corrupt system, for example. And you have a quote here that definitely encapsulates the philosophy of Confucius. Okay, Taoism, also spelled as Taoism, also follows the Tao, but in a different way, where Confucianism says you have to be an active participant in harmony. Taoism says it's what's meant to be is what's meant to be, and that's just what's going to happen, and you just have to let things be. You can't change your behavior or how you're naturally going to act to make the universe more harmonious. Harmonious. It's either going to be harmonious or it's not. I don't know if you guys have ever seen people practicing Ch.6, maybe in a park, but it's very slow, peaceful movements, and it is focused on, pairing your breath with harmonious movements to bring peace, and that evolves out of Taoism. This is, of the three that philosophies we're studying, is most like a religion. You also see the concept of the yin and yang. I'm sure you've seen that symbol before. There's balance, there's dark and there's light, and you have to find the balance for both. Also, this is where Feng Shui comes from. I'm not sure if you know anything about Feng Shui, but that's like how you organize your home and where you place your furniture in relationship to one another, and the door and the windows kind of helps promote balance and harmony within yourself. They also practice rituals and worship different deities. Legalism. Legalism is totally different from Taoism and Confucianism in terms of how it deals with people. It says people are inherently evil by nature, and that they need to be ruled firmly and strictly with a school of law, and they need to be punished swiftly and justly for any injustices that they might, enact on society. And it was always applied in a very punitive manner. It wasn't ever applied in a benevolent, kind manner. See, those are our two words, punitive and benevolent. Now you should know the difference between the two. Okay, so that completes section 1. If you want to continue listening on and get all your homework knocked out, that's fine. But if you need to stop, that's fine too. But we're beginning section 2 now. So what we're going to do over the course of sections 2 and 3 is kind of look at the causes that enable someone to stay in power, but also what kind of dark side of those factors that can also hinder an emperor's power as well. Okay, here are your key terms. All right, so the rise of the Qin dynasty. It was founded by Qin Shi Huangdi after the fall of the Zhou dynasty in 221 BCE. He unified China after a long period of civil war known as the Warring States period, and kind of brought a sense of stability, even though he was definitely a megalomaniac, which we discussed in class. And a famous Chinese historian describes him as having the chest of a bird of prey, the voice of a jackal, and the heart of a tiger. This is pretty descriptive language. What kind of image does that portray in our minds about what kind of ruler he was? Okay, whether or not he was kind or not, it definitely portrays him. Hopefully you came to the conclusion that he was a very strong and effective ruler. Okay, he developed a great deal of infrastructure in China, developed a new coin-based monetary system, developed and expanded roadways, redistributed land from the aristocracy to give it to the peasants. That might sound kind of like an ideal, Robin Hood situation, but one of his motivators for doing that was also just to weaken the aristocracy, because as a megalomaniac, anyone that posed even a moderate threat to his power needed to be exterminated and weakened, and that's what he was doing there. He expanded the Chinese border all the way down south to Vietnam, and began the construction of the Great Wall. And he did this by linking walls that already existed and fortifying them. Now, I mentioned in class that the Great Wall snakes, over the course of its length, and that was done on purpose because it was thought that the evil spirits from the north, in addition to the invaders, but the evil spirits that might come in from the north, couldn't walk in crooked lines, and they couldn't make turns, and so, they could only walk in straight lines, so that kind of prevented them from invading China. Okay, he, not surprisingly, was an adherent of legalism, punitive, harsh, unjust at times, but he also centralized the government and created a really strong bureaucracy. And what a lot of very successful emperors do, and when I say successful, I don't mean they were nice guys. I'm saying successful in, expanding their empire and creating some measure of stability from outward invaders, at least, is that they create bureaucracies. They create these huge institutions that help them run and govern so that it can exist on its own. However, the downfall of this is that they often don't exist after the decline of these rulers. Okay, and this is just kind of a chart showing you the relationship between the different levels of government. So you've got the central bureaucracy, and it's divided into 3 divisions. You've got the military, the censorate, and the civil division. Civil division obviously takes care of the day-to-day functions, finances. Military division, obviously defense. And then you've got the censorate. They were kind of like Qin Shi Huangdi's eyes and ears, and they monitored the government to make sure that they were being efficient, but also to see that they were still loyal to him. Because if they weren't, he would go about making sure that they were no longer a threat. Okay, and Qin Shi Huangdi was known for being ruthlessly efficient. Would kill people, destroy people, send them away if he felt like they were a threat, and he did this with his government administrators, and he used the censors to establish fear amongst his workers to get them to be loyal. Okay, he dies in 202 BCE, and in 206 BCE, you start to see the decline of the Qin Empire, because despite the strength of his bureaucracy, it just can't exist without him. And that's oftentimes the downfall of these bureaucracies, is that despite the fact that if they had enough strength, they could exist without their leader, they often don't exist without their leaders when we're dealing with a dictator-like leader. Okay, moving on to section 3. Understand the factors which provide an empire with strength. Understand that the factors which provide an empire with strength can also weaken it. So we're kind of looking at the downside of some of these strengths in this section. Okay, we've got Liu Pang, civil service, and Han Gaozhou. I'm sure that's not the correct pronunciation, but I tried. Okay, so the government structure during the Han Dynasty, there was a central government and a local government, and the local government was further divided into provinces and counties, and they would kind of relay all their information back to the strong central government. So still borrowing on some of the concepts established by Ch.6 Huangdi. It's during this time period that you see a fair amount of population growth. You can come. You see a fair amount of population growth. So at the start of the Han Dynasty, there are 20 million people. At the height, there are 60 million people. But you see kind of this expansion causing the empire to really, there's a need to rapidly expand. But then over time, you see a decline in people again, and that's going to contribute to the struggles this empire faces. And we will talk later again about China's economic boom. Population boom. And you'll see that early on in history, China starts having huge numbers of people in their cities. And it's interesting when you fast forward to today and see all the population issues that exist there. Okay, the Han Dynasty is divided into two sections, the Western Han and the Eastern Han. This is not a geographical distinction. This is actually a distinction that's marked by time. So there's the Xia Dynasty that took place between the time period of 9 CE and 25 CE, but they declined, and then it was the Han Dynasty was reestablished again. So, like I said, Western and Eastern Han actually refers to time periods, not the Western and Eastern portion of China. Looking at society, there were arranged marriages, a definite belief that women were to be subservient to men. Every male had to serve compulsory military service. And just like with Ch.6 Huangdi, land was taken away from the aristocracy and redistributed to both accommodate the population, but it also kind of benefited the government from keeping the aristocrats from getting too powerful. You see immense population growth. People, especially farmers and the peasants, were really heavily taxed, and that's going to play a huge burden on them and is going to be one of the factors leading to their decline. And because of this heavy taxation, you see a lot of tenant farming, where farmers are farming just barely enough to survive, but they're constantly in the cycle of debt that they can't get out of. And because of all these external issues, you see the strength of the family unit. Okay, here's a list of some of the accomplishments of the Han Dynasty. The seismometer is an indicator of earthquakes. Ship rudders. Okay, and I'm hoping you know what the others are. Okay, as I mentioned before, you've got population decline. The nobility became more interested in personal pursuits rather than running their empire. There was a great deal of corruption, and there was a fair amount of rebellion by angry peasants and the people who felt as though they were shouldering the economic burdens of the society. Okay, make sure you answer this question. How is the decline of the Han similar to the fall of other cultures we have studied? How is it different? Can you pick up any themes in why empires are developed and why they are destroyed? And I will see you in school.